Hello, I'm David Behrman, and it's September 11th. Actually, it's the 11th anniversary, and it's a Tuesday, and the weather is the same as it was then. And 11 years ago, I was in this room, and we're about 10 blocks away. So we have two upcoming performances of My Dear Siegfried. The first one at Roulette on the 20th, and the next one in Washington a week later. And this piece has been slowly underway for a very long time. I don't think there's anything I've worked on over a longer period of time than this Siegfried piece. The new version has 7 parts. The piece is just under an hour long, or around an hour long. There are 7 parts. 5 of them have computer software interactive with voices and instruments. And then it has 2 pieces that have no computer. One of them is the most recent part of the piece, and it's a setting of a Siegfried Sassoon poem from World War I called Does It Matter Losing Your Legs? ? And this poem, as a lot of this piece, seems relevant, unfortunately relative, now because we're still enmeshed in needless wars with soldiers getting killed and injured, which was the situation in World War I when Sassoon was himself an officer in the British Army. So other elements in this piece have texts from my father, who was a writer and playwright, Sam Behrman. He went professionally by the initials S.N. Behrman. He was very active as a playwright in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Really the spark of the piece and the origin of the piece was that I discovered a lengthy letter correspondence between Siegfried Sassoon and my father. I found that after he died, and after my father died. And they maintained a friendship mostly across the Atlantic, because usually my father was in the States and Sassoon was in the UK. And that correspondence started in 1919 and went into the 1950s. So in this Siegfried piece, in the music piece, there are 2 letters. One from my father to Sassoon from August 1939, and the answer from Sassoon to my father from September 1st, 1939. And that was the date that England and Germany went to war. It was the beginning date of World War II, as far as England and Germany were concerned. So those 2 letters form 2 of the 7 parts of the piece. Then there are other parts of the piece. One is a text by Sassoon about his childhood. He grew up in a comfortable country home outside of London. And then there's a text my father also wrote about his childhood in a book called The Worcester Account, which was published in the New Yorker originally. And there's an excerpt from one of those stories about my father's childhood, which was very different. It was in Worcester, Massachusetts, in a poor Jewish quarter of Worcester. So those are 2 of the pieces. Then there's a text by Siegfried Sassoon called A Soldier's Declaration. In World War II, he volunteered and became an officer in the British Army. First, he was patriotic and enthusiastic about the war. And but then, when he went to the front, he completely changed his mind and became a bitter opponent of the war. And he wrote a text in which he declared that he would no longer follow orders. And that brief text is another of the parts of the music piece, and it's read by Tom Buckner. How interactivity is a part of this piece. One of one of the 7 parts of Siegfried it's called Watercress Well. It's the text by Sassoon about his childhood. And the way that works is there's a simple text which is going to be read by Eric Barsness. And then the piece is organized in 9 parts. The first 4 are paragraphs of text, and then there's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So in the first 4 sections, Eric reads each of these paragraphs, short paragraphs. His voice goes into a sensor, which is done in Maximus P. And the sensor is set so that any change in his voice in pitch or loudness will create a trigger. I mean, there's a threshold, adjustable threshold, but it's not listening for specific pitches, because with spoken text, if you want it to sound natural, you can't predict what the exact pitches are. So when the triggers hit, then the Maximus P makes changes in the ongoing sound environment. And there's several elements of that. There are kind of pitch sounds that move around, and there are bell-like sounds. I'm very fortunate there are wonderful musicians in this piece. Ralph Samuelson and Peter Zummo and Ted Mook. And I have done earlier versions of this piece where I had written instructions for the musicians, like what to do while Eric is speaking this text. But I've learned that with these wonderful musicians, it's actually better not to tell them anything, because they will surprise us with wonderful things. And then in parts 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, each of the musicians in turn is assigned the pitch trigger from Maximus P. And that it includes Tom Buckner also. So it's Tom, Peter, Ralph, and Ted. So it's rather loose and somewhat unpredictable, so that means that some performances are better than others, because it depends on all these, what's in everybody's mind and how everybody. So, but I prefer that to more strict music, where these performers might be reading phrases. Yeah, going back to the roots of what I'm doing now, it does all go back to the Sonic Arts years, which were starting around 1967. And yeah, the 4 of us, Alvin Lucier, Gordon Mumma, Robert Ashley, and I, at that time in the later 60s, we developed this way of working where we would never improvise together, but we helped each other. Each of us would do a piece in a concert. So typically a concert of ours would have 4 pieces in it, 1 by each of us. And we would help each other with the tech and with the performance. Yeah, from that experience, we learned some of those pieces would have instructions or a text or a task. Really, it was more that a piece would give you a task. Like if I was helping Alvin Lucier with his brainwave piece, my job would be to put the sensors on his forehead properly. And if I was helping Bob Ashley with a piece, I remember he had one piece where each of us had an attaché case on the table that had microphones and loudspeakers inside, and our task was to very slowly open and close the attaché case, which changed the resonance of the sound while Bob was speaking a text. So it was most of the pieces were on that level of rather simple things to do, but you had to do them right, otherwise they didn't feel right. So, yeah. I'm looking forward very much to doing the Siegfried piece in the new Roulette, and I want to thank Jim Staley very much for supporting this piece. It's been performed several times. As I said, it's developed slowly over the years, and I'd have to figure out how many times it's been done at Roulette, but I think it's at least 2 or 3 times before. And Roulette is always a wonderful venue to do something like this in, and the new space is such a great improvement over the old one that we're really looking forward to doing it there, and thanks to Jim.